Always remembering righty tighty lefty loosey, otherwise you'll be spending a lot more time under the car doing something other than an oil change. The only other thing that I do is I always check underneath the car just to make sure that there's nothing else leaking. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the garage. Today we're going to be doing an oil change on this 2009 G8 GT, and I'm going to show you guys how simple it is and how 20 minutes worth of work can save you 60 to 80 bucks with just using a few tools and doing it right at your home. Now for this job, much like others, are very, very simple. You need minimal amount of tools. In this case, a ratchet, a 13mm socket, an oil filter removal tool. Additionally, you will need an oil filter as well as your oil. Lastly, you'll need to be able to lift up your car to be able to access the oil pan, as well as have an oil pan to drain your old oil into. With that said, let's go ahead and get started. Now, coming underneath the car, you're going to locate your oil pan, which is almost right at the front. You have on the driver's side an oil plug here, and this is the 13mm bolt, and then the oil filter is directly behind that. Now obviously, before you remove both of these, make sure you have the right tools and the right part numbers before you get started, so you don't get stranded at home for not having the right tools or parts. Also, as a safety precaution, always remember to use jack stands. In this case, I'm using a pair of quick jacks which have a locking mechanism on them. I always opt to use jack stands just in case something happens and something fails. I have an extra pair of support points where it gives me just enough time to get out from underneath the car. So with that said, what we're going to do first is we are going to remove the plug for the oil and let the oil drain out. Now while we're doing this, we can also prep the other oil filter to make sure that it is ready to go as soon as the oil is drained. So I usually undo the drain plug first and then the oil filter. Not sure how everybody else does it, but this is just my choice. I want to get as much oil out of there as possible. And there's not really a good trick other than just being quick and undoing the bolt from the top for not getting oil all over yourself. All right, let this guy drain. One thing to note is if you're doing an oil change for the first time, when you first let out the oil, it's going to make an arc and the oil is going to land in one spot, and then as it drains, that drain spot moves to another spot. So you need to position your oil catch pan, I guess you can call it, in a position where the oil will both go into it when it first comes out and where it'll end up. So as long as the oil pan is still underneath directly where the hole is, you're golden. And in worst case scenario, of course, you can always just clean up a bunch of oil. It's always fun. Now while that oil drains, I'm going to go ahead and get the new filter prepared by simply filling up the oil filter just like so, so the membrane can absorb the oil. Now this is always a point of discussion whether that's the right way or wrong way of doing it. Should you fill up an oil filter? Should you not? Something I've been taught to do, and I don't know, it's always worked for me. It helps when you're gauging how much oil to put in. You don't have to account for the oil filter because it's not dry. It already has oil in it. And in my opinion, there's nothing that this could possibly hurt. So I'm going to go ahead, fill this up a little bit more, and then we're going to be ready to remove the old oil filter and put the new one on. So now that the oil has almost completely drained, I'm going to go ahead and wipe this off, wipe that off, inspect to make sure that this little rubber gasket O-ring type deal still intact. If you have a leaking drain plug, that's probably one of the reasons it's leaking. Don't just go and torque it another 10 foot-pounds because that may not be the issue. Just a free little tip for you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten that up. Now the reason that I'm tightening that up is if you can do it, let it drain some more. It's fine. But I don't want it all over my arms, so I'm just going to go ahead and tighten that up and take off the oil filter. And that is fairly simple. This guy here, and grab it. Always remembering righty tighty lefty loosey, otherwise you'll be spending a lot more time under the car doing something other than an oil change. Typically there's like, I don't know, 15-20 seconds worth of oil that'll come out that's just draining from the top of the motor down, and then right after that I'll take off the filter, flip it upside down, and let it drain into the oil pan. Also, while this was draining, I went up top and I undid the oil cap. I don't know if that helps a lot, but it allows, I guess, oil to be displaced by air. Not that it can't be. And then so got the cap off. This is the easy part. I'm gonna go ahead and toss new oil back in. I recommend using a funnel when at all possible. And you might notice that I am not using 5W30 as recommended on top of the oil cap as seen here. Reason for that is this is a built motor, and the guy I got the car off of was told by the shop that built the motor to specifically use the 15W40 oil. So that is what I'm going to go ahead and use. Your car might be a little bit different. It's probably going to use 5W40, or I'm sorry, 5W30. That's the case. Go ahead and do that. And usually these V8s take quite a bit of oil, anywhere in the range of 6 to 7 quarts in my experience. So I'm just going to go ahead and dump in about 6 quarts, and probably less than that, and see where we land. This is one of those situations where you want to have less oil first. Don't start the car, obviously, and then work up, because if you have too much oil, that becomes a problem, and then you got to go back under there and drain some oil and waste good oil, and just, it's not good. Three-quarters of the way up. And the way you can tell also, I don't know how apparent it is on the camera here, but the way you can tell too is these holes will be filled with oil, and the ones that aren't reached won't be filled with oil. So the oil is probably right there. You can see the bar is fully wetted to right here. There's some oil here, but that's just because of the way the dipstick goes in and out. There's some oil in there, but certainly not overfilled. So I feel pretty confident with this here. And again, I'll check it again after I start the car up just to make sure, but this is the bare basic filling procedure that you got to do on your car before starting it. And once this is replaced, the only other thing that I do is I always check underneath the car just to make sure that there's nothing else leaking. Other than that, we're done here. Well, there you have it, guys. For less than 20 minutes and maybe 50 bucks worth of materials, I was able to complete the oil change on this G8. If you like videos like this and you're looking to do some DIY work on your cars in your garage, look at some of the other videos that I have, and hopefully that helps you guys out. See you next time.